Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. We have 3 Kentucky Derby points races to preview on Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will analyze the Grade 2 Holy Bull Stakes at Gulfstream, the Grade 3 Withers Stakes at Aqueduct, and the Grade 3 Robert B. Lewis Stakes at Santa Anita. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment focuses on the Holy Bull, as does Craig Milkowski's Timeform U.S. Pace Projector segment. J.K. Jonathan Kinchin's Play of the Day, a Gulfstream Daily Double on Saturday, and David Aragona from Timeform U.S. spotlights some value opportunities at Aqueduct on Saturday. Plus best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Mike Beer, Naira analyst, you found a first-time starter that had nothing but trouble.
Yeah, 7-7 debuted for Linda Rice last Saturday at the Big A, had the rail in a big field. We're going to put the replay up. Now, this is a Linda Rice first-time starter. She can win first out, but she's much better second time out. So you'll expect to see this horse improve, and you're going to see 7-7. He's out of the gate fine in this race, trying to get a forward position here. Unfortunately for him, he's going to wind up behind a horse who checks really hard in front of him right there. And 7-7 is just going to get shuffled right out of this race. From this point, he's pretty much out of it in this race. They're going to pick it up at the top of the stretch. He's inside. He's going to try and make a little run here. Obviously, he can't win from here. He's going to get into more traffic late in this race. Then he gallops out well. Worth pointing out that the winner of this race, a Linda Rice second-time starter who just galloped over this field. This horse had a real tough trip, though, 7-7 first time out, and you expect Linda Rice second-time starters to really improve.
And this horse took a little bit of money into the teeth of that impressive odds-on winner. You're right, 7-7 had absolutely no chance with that sort of trip first time out. Matt, your first-time starter had no trouble at all, dominating the field and is one of the more talked-about 3-year-old prospects in the country.
Yeah, this is kind of an uninteresting horse watch because I'm sure everybody that pays any sort of attention knows the name Hidden Scroll at this point. We're going to go back to the career debut. This was on the Pegasus World Cup undercard last Saturday. He's got the Juddmonte Silks. At this point, the race is over. It's just a matter of how far is he going to win by. Ultimately wins by 14 lengths. He got a 104 buyer. He's by hard spun. There's a lot of turf on the bottom, but the fact that this is a Bilmont first-time starter, bet down to 8-1. I know it was over a speed-friendly track. I know it was over a sloppy sealed track. Maybe he's not quite this good, but you got to have some talent and some ability to run a 104 in your career debut. So many people have brought up the parallel where the career debut for Justify here into 104. I'm not going to go that far as to say he's Justify, but he looks like he's promising enough going forward. I'm
going with an older horse from my horse watch. City of Light stole the show last week in the Pegasus World Cup, but I thought old Seeking the Soul gave a really nice account of himself to run second. You had to be forwardly placed over the wet track on Pegasus World Cup day, and as they swing into the stretch, City of Light is already going, gone. Seeking the Soul was kind of jammed up inside. He's going to come with a good late run. He's going to pass Champion Accelerate in the final eighth of a mile. I like the way Seeking the Soul finished this race off here into 103 buyer speed figure. Dallas Stewart's going to send him to Dubai for the Dubai World Cup. I'm not sure that's the spot for him. That track historically has been very speed friendly, and Seeking the Soul likes to come from off the pace, but I'm really interested in this horse as a long-term prospect. Maybe races like the Stephen Foster, or maybe even a return engagement in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile at the end of the year. That's Seeking the Soul for Dallas Stewart. Really liked his performance over the wet track in the Pegasus World Cup. Let's get to some handicapping. The Holy Bull Stakes at Gulfstream is one of 3 Kentucky Derby points races we have on tap for you this week. Let's throw up the field for Saturday's DRF Bets Race of the Day. It's the Grade 2 Holy Bull Stakes at Gulfstream Park, an important Kentucky Derby points race. It's carded as race number 11 at Gulfstream, and you can access free Formulator Pass performances on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. And for expanded stakes previews of all the graded action this week, plus lots more, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, we've got an omni-fig in this race. Maximus Mischief towers over this field in terms of speed figures.
He certainly does. The only question now, I think, if you're looking at this horse and trying to poke holes in him, it's not about the speed figures, it's about the running style, because he's very unlikely to make the lead here, and in all 3 lifetime starts, he's basically been out there all by himself. We'll go back to his most recent run. This was in the Remsen back at the beginning of December, and at this point, he's got a pretty significant challenge from Tax there on the outside. But to his credit, he puts him away. He goes on. He's going to get a little bit goofy, pop to his left lead, just shy of the wire. I don't know, guys. I don't know ultimately how far he wants to go. I don't know if he was getting tired here or just getting a little bit goofy. At the end of the day, he's a very, very talented horse. I think the talent's undeniable. And really, I think this is a nice group. But at this point right now, I just think Maximus Mischief is the best one.
By far, he is the fastest one. Mike, you and I are going to look for a little bit of a price. I don't have a lot of excitement in trying to put too much money in against Maximus Mischief. Tell us about your price play.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, though. Maximus Mischief, I think he's a nice horse. I'm not way against him in here. He's the horse to beat. I actually think Mijos, the 6, is a good horse, too. So we'll see what happens with those two horses. I just wanted to go in a different direction. Harvey Wallbanger's the 5. He's going to be a price in this race. I realized that his last 2 races at Churchill, they came back a little bit slow on the Beyer scale, but I thought he ran well on both of those. And I thought he ran well in this race, too, that we're going to look at now. This is at Keeneland, 3 starts back, his 2nd career start, first time around 2 turns. This horse made a big run from off the pace to get up on the lead here at the top of the stretch. And you're going to see him hold a short advantage in this race all the way down to the wire. The horse to his inside is going to fight him the entire way. And Harvey Wallbanger is going to miss a brutal bob at the end of this race, and he's going to have to settle for second. But I like this performance for him. His 2nd career start, he got an 81 Beyer. That's the kind of figure that if he can improve off in this race and catch a little pace, which it looks like he might, this horse could do some damage at a price.
That's a great point. There is pace in this race. He's one of the true confirmed closers. He'll be running late. Fletcher Castellano used to have all the cachet at Gulfstream, maybe not as much in 2019, but they're still very dangerous, and they've got the number 2 Federal Case in here. This horse won his debut for trainer Rudy Brissett, and then went through the auction ring and sold for $650,000. That is a lot of money for a son of gemologist who handled 2-turn routes with no problem. In his first start for Todd, he caught a nice easy spot, or so it seemed. It was only a 4-horse field. We swing into the stretch, and Federal Case at 2 to 5 is going to have to dig to catch this horse on the lead. Makes me think that this horse wants 2 turns and additional ground. This is a 1-turn mile race, and it looks like Federal Case is just getting warmed up the final 16th of a mile. He drew a real nice inside post position in the Holy Bull. I'm hoping that Javier can be a bit aggressive, tuck in behind the speeds, and come with a mid-pack rally late. Federal Case earned an 88 Beyers speed figure in that spot. It's going to have to prove that he can step up against a horse like Maximus Mischief. We continue our analysis with the Holy Bull with Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment. She's got some bloodline information that you're going to need to know about. And of course, we've got Craig Milkowski's Timeform US Pace Projector. He breaks down the pace scenario for the Holy Bull.
Hey everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky for Out of the Gate. There are 3 Kentucky Derby points races around the country this weekend at Aqueduct, Santa Anita, and Gulfstream Park. We're going to key in on the latter for this week's Pedigree Analysis. You're looking at the field for the Grade 2 Holy Bull at Gulfstream, and the race has largely gotten attention for the matchup between unbeaten Maximus Mischief and Mijos, who won the Mucho Macho Man at Gulfstream last out. So naturally, we'll take a closer look at those 2. Maximus Mischief, who you're watching here win the Remsen going 1 mile and an 1/8 at Aqueduct, helped Into Mischief continue to reign as North America's leading juvenile sire last year, both based on earnings and based on our exclusive Beyer sire performance standings. Now, Into Mischief had his best finish in a Triple Crown race last year as well, when Audible was 3rd in the Kentucky Derby. Maximus Mischief's broodmare sire is Song and a Prayer, who I definitely think of as more of a speed influence, but his daughters have produced the likes of Sunny Ridge, Danzig Candy, and Take Charge Paula, so some runners who can go a bit longer. But the bigger issue seems to be that Maximus Mischief's first 2 dams, Reina Maria and Maria's Pride, neither ever won beyond 6.5 furlongs. Maria's Pride did produce Secret Compass, a Grade 1 winner around 2 turns as a juvenile, and this is the extended family of Mylute, who was 3rd in the 2013 Preakness. So this pedigree a little bit of a mixed bag. Maximus Mischief already with that win at 9 furlongs. We'll see if he can continue to build on that. Now, the exciting Mijos won the Mucho Macho Man going 1 mile at Gulfstream, rallying by a pretty well-regarded horse and Trophy Chaser. This colt is from the first crop of Cairo Prince, 3rd on last year's freshman earnings list. Cairo Prince won the 2014 Holy Bull. And of course, he's from that classic Pioneer of the Nile, Empire Maker, Unbridled line. I think some of his runners are getting ready to start blossoming and thriving with distance. Now, Mijos is the second foal out of an unraced Lionheart mare in Feline Flatline. Her first foal won at a mile. The second dam is Ginny's Gold, who won around 2 turns and was multiple graded places up to a mile and an eighth. She also produced Charla Ray, who won the Grade 1 Delmar Oaks routing on the turf. Now, distance doesn't seem like something you need to be as concerned about as Mijos steps up to make his graded stakes debut. As I mentioned, the Holy Bull, one of 3 Derby preps this weekend. I'll take a closer look at some of the standouts emerging next week on the DRF Breeding Report. But in the meantime, we're bringing you more on this weekend's action on Out of the Gate with the Timeform US Pace Projector.
Hi, this is Craig Malkowski for Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. In my Pace Projector segment, I chose to look at the Grade 2 Holy Bull Stakes being run at Gulfstream Park this Saturday at a mile and a 16th on the dirt. It's the 11th race. It's the feature race on the card, and it is a race that awards points towards a starting berth in the Kentucky Derby Gate this year. So first, let's start by looking at the preview page, and we'll see a few of the reasons that I picked this race as one to go with. The first one is it drew a full field of 10, and the race is indicated to be projected to have a fast pace by the Timeform US Pace Projector. You can see that in the upper right corner. And then just looking down at the horses in the field, you can see there's a lot of speed drawn to the outside, which at this mile and a 16th distance at Gulfstream Park features a short run into the first turn. So this is a race that is just really highly likely to have a hot contested pace early. And for that reason, I kind of focused in. You'll notice I circled the even money morning line odds on Maximus Mischief. And the reason I'm going to focus on him is because he's a horse I'm definitely going to be against in here. So I'm not going to use him in pick 4s, pick 5s, 3s, whatever there happens to be available. Let's take a closer look at that pace projector. You can see number 8, Maximus Mischief. He's shown in about 4th or 5th, something like that, on the outside. And again, that's because despite basically going wire to wire in all 3 of his career races and winning pretty easily, he's facing a much sterner test in here. He's obviously a very, very talented horse. He's won a lot of his races. He's won all of his races, but he's won them all easily as well. So let's take a closer look at Maximus Mischief. And what you'll see here, what I've been talking about is, despite the fact he's won easy, he has nice speed figures for this time of year. 111 last out, 114 the time before that. He's done it with some really favorable trips, and every one of his trips he's had what we code the pace as slow with blue coloring, and you'll see every one of his 3 races have shown that. So I think this is just a big step up in competition for him. The wide post isn't going to do him any favors. Like I said, there's plenty of speed drawn outside of him, even a little bit some inside of him. So I just think it's going to be a real tough test. It wouldn't shock me if he wins, you know, and just proves to be the real deal and a force to be reckoned with. But at, you know, even money odds we're seeing on the morning line could even be a little lower by post time. He's not a horse I'm interested in from a value standpoint as a bettor. Let's take a look at Mijos. He is a horse who definitely I have some interest in here, but he is a second choice in the field. He's won over this Gulfstream course last time out, going a mile. He's shown as a 6th in the pace projector, shown with an outside trip in the mid-pack. But you know, again, he's done little wrong. He's won both of his last 2. He has the best last race speed figure with a 113, as you can see. What I am a little leery of is he did get a pretty nice trip last time, sitting off what was a really fast pace. He was on the outside of that one turn mile, so he had a nice run into the turn, nice clear run. And while I do think he's a contender in here, I do like him more than the favorite Maximus Mischief, and I'll use him in my horizontal bets. I'm probably going to steer clear of a win bet just because of the short price, and I'm going to focus on the last horse we're going to look at, and that's number 2, Federal Case. It's a little bit interesting in that he's won both of his races and he's been up close both times, but he's not a horse I feel really has to be up there. It's just been a case that he's been that much better than his rivals. He does have good tactical speed. So, and the 6-1 morning line draws me to him. What I like is he draws that 2-hole, so he's got a nice inside post. He has a tactical speed to get good position. He should be able to save ground around that first turn, while many of his rivals will not be. They'll be hung out and dueling up on the lead. And the one thing I like, you'll notice I drew a blue arrow here on the graphic showing how his pace figures, and that's actually the race pace figures. So his were just a little bit lower as he was in second. But you'll see how he started out slow and improved as the race went along, still was able to finish strong. So to me, this is a horse that shouldn't have much problem with the extra distance, and he shouldn't have much problem reading. So for me this week, I'm going to make a win bet on Federal Case. I will use him and Mijos in my horizontal bets, and I'm really going to be against the favorite, number 8, Maximus Mischief. That does it for this week for me for Out of the Gate, and I'll be back with another segment next week.
DRF Sports Forum Digital Edition, your ultimate weekly betting guide. Published by Daily Racing Form, DRF Sports Forum delivers all of the analysis and insight you need for every NFL game and more than 40 college football matchups. Beat the spread with powerful trends and sharp angles. Tap into best bets, expert picks, parlay winners, and more. All for just $4.99 per issue. Get this week's edition free. Visit drf.com/sportsforum. Enter code DRFSports.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 3 Withers Stakes at Aqueduct on Saturday, another Kentucky Derby points race. This is the demanding distance of 1 1/8. It's carded as race number 9 and has a $250,000 purse. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races all weekend long and lots more, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, the number 5, Lucky Lee, added Lasix 2 starts back, was allowed to stretch out around 2 turns, and has been unstoppable since. This is the acid test.
Yeah, it's a tougher field for him to face, that's for sure, as he steps up in class. But they stretched him out for a second start. He has the pedigree to go long, and he handled it really well. Won easily over maidens. The first time they stretched him out, here's his second start. This is an allowance race at Parks. He just got right to the front in this race, guys. The horses that were behind him just were no match. He would never let him into the race. This is an easy win with an 88 buyer. I know things are going to be tougher for him in this spot. He probably can't make the lead this time. I don't think he needs to make the lead. This horse looks like he has some ability. To be honest, I could have gone either way on him in this race, but I just didn't want one of the shorter prices in here. I think he's going to be a square price on the line when they get to the post, and I think he has a real chance. This horse has run really well in his last 2 starts.
Matt, when you consider pedigree, potential, performance, and connections, the number 3 Moretti's got it all. There's a lot of buzz around this horse.
Yeah, I mean, I like everything he's done in 2 lifetime starts, but admittedly, he's a little bit on the immature side still, and I think that's why the blinkers are going on despite him winning his most recent start. We can go back to that race. This is at Aqueduct back in the middle of December. You're going to see he's already hit the front here. He was bet down to 4 to 5 this day. He's going to change leads a little bit late and drift out here, and that's kind of what I'm alluding to, that he's a little bit on the green side. But keep in mind, this race was at 1 1/8. And the other thing that I'm a little bit interested in, from the buyer boys, he only got a 79 buyer. Timeform US, the raw rating is a 110. I have reason to believe that that buyer could be as many as 10 points too light. If that's the case, this horse is arguably the horse to beat. I'm not going to go quite that far, but if you told me 3 to 1 come post time, I'd take it.
I'm hoping the number 1 Tax drifts up off that 2 to 1 morning line. Heck, this horse is a reformed maiden claimer who jumped up 27 points in his first start off the Danny Gargan claim, and that came in the Remsen. We saw this replay already. So nice we'll see it twice. Turning into the stretch, you got Maximus Mischief on the lead. The pace wasn't fast, but Tax was in a 3-wide chasing trip. He tried Maximus Mischief in earnest on the turn. Just wasn't good enough for the undefeated Maximus Mischief. And the horse that's going to come and finish second, Network Effect, the beaten favorite, he's a pretty nice one as well. Either one of those horses would be heavily favored in the 2019 edition of the Withers. I like Tax's effort. It was a nice Beyer speed figure, and Gargan historically does good work with horses second off the claim. Good inside post position. I want him to get position behind the speeds with a mid-pack trip. I'll go with Tax in the Withers. We'll move out to Southern California. We're expecting a lot of wet weather out there. The Robert B. Lewis is the Kentucky Derby points race at Santa Anita. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 3 $150,000 Robert B. Lewis Stakes. Carded as race number 6 at Santa Anita on Saturday. We're going a mile and a 16th. For expanded stakes previews, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike Gunmetal Gray was chasing 2-year-old champion game winner through the end of his 2-year-old campaign. Started out his 3-year-old campaign, went out to the track at Santa Anita, no game winner. He felt fine.
Yeah, he really did in the Grade 3 Sham, his first start as a 3-year-old. You know, he just got outrun in that race. He just sat last, but he was very comfortable back there. Let's look at the replay of this race. We're going to pick it up as they come into the stretch. You can see him back there. He's still last. The pace of this race was legitimate, however. They were going in front of him, and you're going to see Gunmetal Gray just kick it into gear here, the final 1/8 of a mile, and he is going to close this race down at the end. A nice performance, I thought, for his 3-year-old debut. This is a horse who still has plenty of upside. You feel like, if anything, the longer distances that are coming up for him are, you know, they just suit him just fine. It's not easy to take a short price on a horse with his running style. I guess that would be the one drawback for him, but he just might be the best horse in the race.
It appears he needs pace, however, Matt. Your top selection in this race supplies the pace, and in a short field, I don't think he's going to have to go guns blazing to make it. It's a Baffert 3-year-old. Case closed, right?
Well, I mean, you know, it seems like that's been a bit of a trend in recent years, but I kind of like what you were alluding to, that, you know, pace makes the race. I don't think there's a heck of a lot in here. I do know Mucho Gusto wants to go to the front. Now, maybe this isn't going to be his game ultimately going longer, but I think a mile and a 16th is within his scope. We're going to go back to the Los Al Futurity, and I can understand anyone that looks at it and says, oh, well, you know, he was easily beaten in this spot in X, Y, and Z. I mean, he ran a winning race, I think. You take Improbable out of the equation, who many people argue is the best 3-year-old that we have. And this horse, Mucho Gusto, would have beaten the field by 3 lengths in a Grade 1 going a mile and a 16th in gate-to-wire fashion. I just think that the idea of him being sort of all by himself on the front end, I think that's going to be a big, big ask for anybody else to come and get him. The only thing that could be a hiccup for this horse, we talked about it in Stakes Preview, his sire, Mucho Macho Man, hated a wet track. He hasn't his progeny have not liked the wet track, and we're probably going to have that on Saturday. We'll find out if Mucho Gusto can handle it.
Mike, Mucho Gusto expected to make the lead. Nolo Contesto shouldn't be too far away. This horse looked good in his first start around 2 turns against Maidens for John Sadler. Big hiking class.
Yeah, he's going to step up here. He's going to have to do it from an outside post, but he should be able to get forward in here. His debut sprinting was actually a deceptively good performance. I thought they stretched him out for a second start. We'll look at the replay now. This was a horse who you could see Rosario wanted to get him forward. He got hung up 4 wide around the first turn trying to get up close to the pace, and then he sat the right kind of trip, and he's just going to hook up here with the even money favorite at the top of the stretch and duel him down well clear of the rest of this field. I thought this was a nice step forward. This horse, yes, he has to step forward again, but he should be a fair price in this race. I'll take a shot.
I liked everything about this race as well. Rosario was riding him confidently, turning into the stretch. Only really got into him the final 16th of a mile. If he can keep Mucho Gusto within range, I'm expecting him to attack on the turn and be in prime position swinging into the stretch. Son of Pioneer of the Nile sold for $385,000 as a yearling. I'll go with Nolo Contesto in the Robert B. Lewis Stakes. JK's play of the day, well, he's got a daily double at Gulfstream Park for you. David Aragona's Timeform US Spotlight. I believe it's race number 2 at Aqueduct, and as always, David's got a value play.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's play of the day. Forgive the mess in the background, moving out of our office here. Lots of stuff going on here. Big weekend, Derby preps are upon us. I'm going to give you a double play out at Gulfstream Park starting in race 10. We're going to do 3 different doubles. We're going to do a $20 double with Topper T, the 3-horse, a $20 double with High Crime, the 4-horse, and a $60 double with the 5-horse, Call Paul. Now, into one horse in the next race, and we'll get to that in a second. Topper T is a horse that I think has been dying to get cut back. The horse has been kind of a workout buzz horse in his last couple of starts since he came to Bill Mott's barn. I think the answer to that question is he's been looking for something a little bit shorter. He's going to get the 7/8, and maybe it's still not going to be good enough, but I think that he's shown some talent in the morning and maybe just going a little bit too long, and the 7/8 should hit him right in between the eyes, and hopefully we'll see a big performance out of him at a big price. High Crime ran really well last time. I didn't like the fact that he kind of had the easy pace, but he did run a really fast figure and also got a, it was a really visually impressive performance. So I'm going to give him another shot there with that kind of weighted double. And then I think the most likely winner obviously is Call Paul. Won a stake up at Saratoga, fast, the hot Jason Service barn, the hot Irad Ortiz. I think he's going to probably be the favorite here. That's why we're going to spend a little bit more money on that double to make up for some of that equity lost and the fact that he's bet so much through the windows. On to race 11, the Holy Bull. Federal Case is probably going to take a little bit of money for Todd Pletcher. Mijos obviously will take a little money as well off the last race, but I think Maximus Mischief is an absolute standout. I think he's a freaky type of 3-year-old, and I think we'll see a really big performance from him. I'm going to go ice cold with those 3 doubles to the 8-horse Maximus Mischief. So the ticket again is a $20 double 3-8, a $20 double 4-8, and a $60 double 5-8 on a $100 budget. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. I want to take a look at the second race at Aqueduct on Saturday. It's a race for 3-year-olds going 1 mile and 1/8. It's a maiden race, and I think it'll be a good race to use as a comparison to the 9th race on this card, which is the Grade 3 Withers for 3-year-olds, which is going to be one of the major Derby preps in New York, leading up to the Run for the Roses in May. And one of the horses in that Withers is Moretti, who's a Todd Pletcher horse coming out of a maiden victory. And 3 of the horses that he beat in that maiden victory are coming back in this second race, a maiden race going the exact same distance as the Withers. So we can use this race not only to compare the times of the 2 races, but also to see if any of the horses coming out of Moretti's maiden win validate that victory or suggest that he's flattered ahead of the Withers. Looking at the field for this second race, the 2 favorites are the number 1 Stilts and the number 4 Modagali. Modagali is probably going to be the clear-cut choice given his connections with Chad Brown and Manny Franco as his jockey, one of the leading riders at NYRA, and the fact that he just seems to be improving with each start. Taking a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector, these 2 likely favorites are likely to be stalking the number 2 horse Ehrlich in the early going. We'll get to him in a little bit. He might have some trouble with the distance, but I think the number 4 Modagali, who is likely to be the favorite, is going to sit a very good trip in this race, much the same way that he did last time in that December 20th maiden win when he finished behind Moretti. He was basically following the leader throughout the early stages of that race. Ehrlich was in front that day, and he was able to angle out around that foe at the top of the stretch and sort of follow Moretti into the lane. And while he couldn't quite stick with Moretti late, as he won fairly visually impressively, Modagali did grind away to finish second and get past Stilt, who's also in today's race, to get the place. And I thought it was a good effort all in all as a son of Union Rags. I mean, he should be having no trouble with the 1 mile and 1/8 distance, and he proved that he can handle it last time. There's just nothing about this horse that really excites me. I made him 6-5 on the morning line, and I think he's going to be around that price. And I think there are other horses in this race that are worth considering at more enticing prices, so I'm definitely using him, but he's not a horse that I really want to bet on top. The number 1 horse Stilts, I think, is arguably his main rival in this race because he finished so close to Modagali last time, and I thought that Stilts actually did it with a much more taxing trip. In the early stages, Stilts was about 3 wide around the clubhouse turn, and Dylan Davis could sense that the pace was kind of slowing down in the backstretch, and he really ranged up outside of horses, entered the far turn 4 wide, had to go much wider than Modagali, who was riding the rail for much of the race, around that turn, got into the stretch, and it looked like he was going to be the biggest challenge to Moretti for about a furlong, and then he just kind of flattened out understandably in the last furlong, and Modagali was able to get inside of him and get second place over him. But I thought Stilts actually ran the better race that day. Modagali has stronger form prior to that to really back up his performance. Stilts was a huge price in that December 20th race, going off at 40-1. He's going to be a much shorter price today, but I do think he still has some upside, and I kind of prefer him to Modagali, although both of these horses, I'm not sure how big of an edge they really have on this field because there are some other horses with ability. The number 2 horse, Erlich, who I mentioned when discussing the pace projector, he's going to be in front of these once again. I like his race around 1 turn, 3 back on November 10th, when he was very game inside of Tacitus, a well-meant Bill Mott second-time starter. He battled on to be second by a neck that day. He didn't quite handle the stretch out to 1 mile and 1/8 in his next start, finishing behind Moretti, Modigali, and Stilts, and that's kind of in line with his race at Keeneland before that. It just doesn't seem like he really wants to go 2 turns at this point in his career, so even though he might have a pace advantage setting, relatively moderate fractions on a clear lead, I'm just not really sure that he's quite ready to take that step forward and turn his tables on horses like Modigali and Stilts in this spot. I want to go in a different direction and take a horse that's coming in from out of town in this race. That's the number 6 horse, It Got Grandma, and I think he is the most interesting alternative to the 2 favorites. He really just wanted no part of his debut going 6 furlongs at Aqueduct back on November 3rd. He didn't really start all that well that day, kind of got outrun early. You see the Timeform US pace figures for that race are all color-coded blue, indicating that the pace was slow, so he just really had no chance to make up ground on that field, even though he was running well across the wire to finish 4th. He came back and stretched out to 1 mile at Laurel next time out, and while that was not the toughest field, certainly not on the same par as the race that Moretti won at Aqueduct, I liked the way that he ran in that race because, once again, he wasn't away all that well. He was just kind of slow into stride. For whatever reason, Alex Intron put him on the rail in the stretch, which is often not the place to be at Laurel. But even despite that trip, he was running on well at the end of that race. One thing we've added to the Timeform US PPs recently are track condition ratings to indicate how fast or slow track surfaces are, kind of irrespective from the ratings like fast, good, muddy, or sloppy. And you see that this track at Laurel last time got a track condition rating of 9 on a 1 to 10 scale, indicating that this was a pretty fast surface. And while the pace is not color-coded blue, indicating that it was slow, you can see by looking at the leader's pace line that he was progressively running faster fractions throughout the race. And often on very fast tracks, like when you see like a 9 or 10 dirt track, it's just very hard for horses to close into leaders that have relatively easy leads like that. So I think that It Got Grandma just did not have the right setup last time, and I love this horse stretching out to 1 mile and 1/8. He's got a pedigree that is all about stamina. On the dam side, Gotcha Last, his dam, she was a stakes winner going 9 furlongs, even as far as 1.25 miles during her racing career. She's produced American Freedom, who was second in both the Haskell and the Travers at 10 furlongs, as well as Gotcha Gold, who was a graded stakes winner going 9 furlongs, and he placed in a bunch of graded stakes races going a round of ground. So I think this horse is really going to appreciate stretching out around 2 turns. I'm hoping if the pace is a bit more moderate this time, he can get closer early, and Junior Alvarado should have him in a stalking position about 2 or 3 lengths off the pace. And I just think he's going to take the biggest step forward. He's got the most upside, and he's probably going to be the biggest price of the 4 main contenders. So I'm taking a shot with It Got Grandma in the second race at Aqueduct on Saturday. Now I'll send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike Beer, Naira Analyst. You've got an old war horse trained by Rudy Rodriguez.
I don't think Naira Analyst is an apt title anymore, but that's neither here nor there. Let's go to race 8 at the Big A. You guys can throw the replay of Papa Shot up there. To me, this is a horse who, if nothing else, I just think he's a little bit dirtied up, guys. He was claimed by Rudy a few starts back. First 2 starts off the claim, he caught sloppy tracks both times. He doesn't really love a wet track, this horse. In this race, there's not much to see here. He's not doing a ton of running through the stretch in this race. He was very keen and rank off a little bit of a layoff early. This race is at 9 furlongs, and I just feel like that's too far for this horse. I think he wants to go shorter. Rudy cuts him back to a 1-turn mile. He should catch a fast track in this race, and he's dropping in class for this race. There's a lot of things to like for a horse, so I just feel like his recent form's not as bad as it looks, and he might be a square price in this race.
Matt, you have a sharp Southern California horse that likes a wet track, and that could really come into play at the Great Race Place on Saturday.
Yeah, how often do you come across those? The third race, it's a $16,000 claimer going a mile. I like the 3 Pioneer of the West in here. We go back to his most recent run, and you brought it up, Dan. It came over a wet track. Wet fast track. He's on the outside right now, taking over. I like the fact that he has a little bit of tactical ability. This day he sat a little bit farther off of it and still commenced a bid. The concern that I have, admittedly, is this run was at the 12.5 level, and I know he defeated a number of common opponents that he'll face here on Saturday, but going back up to the 16 level, he's occasionally found this a little bit difficult. I'm just going to have faith that Vladimir Serin has gotten him good and gotten him going along. The wet track certainly doesn't hurt. 5-2 on the morning line, I would take it.
Hoping third time's the charm for the number 4 Painter by Numbers in the 4th race at Aqueduct. Not only is it his 3rd lifetime start, This is the third time they've tried to card this race at NYRA over the last few weeks, only to be washed or thawed out. Painter by Numbers was the beaten favorite at odds on last time out. We're going to swing into the stretch of this race, and he has a clear lead, and it looks like he should win. But I thought he did a lot of dirty work in the early part of the race. He was 4 wide after the first quarter mile. Eric Consell took back, angled him down towards the inside. He shot on through, battled for the lead, put away his pace foes, and then he's going to get understandably tired in the final 16th of a mile when this 19-to-1 shot runs by him late. Daughter of Painter, sold for $200,000 as a 2-year-old in training, should be forwardly placed in race number 4. I'm hoping this horse drifts off of the morning line because Chad Brown's got a Juddmonte homebred stretching out with a big pedigree. I think that horse is going to take a little bit of money. One more chance for Painter by Numbers, the 4 horse in the 4th race at Aqueduct on Saturday. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate. We urge you to follow all of DRFTV's followings on social media. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.